I heard 1,000 blended notes, while in a grove I sat reclined, in that sweet mood when pleasant thoughts bring sad thoughts to the mind. To her fair works did nature link the human soul that through me ran, and much it grieved my heart to think what man has made of man. Through primrose tufts in that green bower the periwinkle trailed its reeds, and 'tis my faith that every flower enjoys the air it breathes. The birds around me hopped and played, their thoughts I cannot measure, but the least motion which they made, it seemed a thrill of pleasure. The budding twigs spread out their fan to catch the breezy air, and I must think, do all I can, that there was pleasure there. If this belief from heaven be sent, if such be nature's holy plan, have I not reason to lament what man has made? William Wordsworth published his poem, Lines Written in Early Spring, in 1798. In the volume that he co-wrote with Samuel Taylor Coleridge, Lyrical Balance, the poem reflects several central romantic themes. It illustrates the importance of nature as a source of joy and pleasure, as well as a source of moral wisdom, even as it acknowledges human beings' alienation from nature. The poem consists of 6 stanzas of 4 lines each, 6 quatrains. Each stanza rhymes A, B, and most of the rhymes are perfect. Reclined, mind, think, link, ran, man. The only exception is in the first stanza, where there's a slant rhyme, notes and thoughts. The dominant meter is iambic. The first 3 lines are iambic tetrameter, and the fourth line of each stanza is iambic trimeter. Wordsworth uses a variety of sound effects throughout the poem. He makes use of alliteration, what man has made of man, faith and flower, it is my faith that every flower, every motion that they made, these thoughts. He also uses assonance, while in a grove I sat, reclined, the eyes there, the human soul that through me ran, and of course, what man has made of man. The A's, the short A's there. Also, be and creed, if such be my creed. But he uses consonants even more frequently, though its use is often subtle. I heard 1,000 blended notes. That sweet mood when pleasant, all those T's, bring sad thoughts to the mind, all the D's, works, the human, works and link, the K's, the human soul that through me ran, the N's, budding and spread, the D's, and not lament what man has made of man, right? Lots of use of consonants. In keeping with this idea that poetry should be using ordinary language rather than flowery poetical language, the diction in this poem is simple, mostly one-syllable words, all of them fairly simple. The only things he refers to that readers might not be familiar with are the primrose and periwinkle, which are ordinary English garden flowers, nothing particularly special about them. The speaker of the poem is probably the poet himself, and the setting of the poem is a grove in early spring. The grove embodies a mild rather than a wild form of nature, a sort of partially tamed form of nature, and early spring is a season associated with newness and freshness and hope. In the poem, Wordsworth appeals mainly to our sense of sight in his description of the flowers, the birds, the trees in the garden. He makes one appeal to hearing in the very first line, I heard 1,000 blended notes, referring to the bird song in the grove. And he also uses tactile imagery, making the reader imagine the feeling of the breezy air and the pleasure of motion. In the first stanza, the speaker is sitting in the grove relaxing, but the happy thoughts he is thinking paradoxically lead to sad thoughts. Stanza 2 goes on to explain those sad thoughts. Nature links his soul to all the beauty and all the happiness around him, but he thinks about what human beings have done to each other, and he's sad. In this stanza, he personifies nature as female. To her fair works did nature link. In the next 3 stanzas, the speaker goes on to personify the natural things that he sees in the grove. In stanza 3, he sees flowers, and he thinks that they're enjoying the spring air in the way he is. He uses the word faith here, which gives a kind of religious importance to his belief in the happiness of the flowers. In stanza 4, he sees the birds, who seem to be playing and enjoying themselves. But he does admit he can't be sure what they're thinking. In some ways, this is kind of a projection onto the things of nature. In stanza 5, he imagines that the new twigs on the trees also feel pleasure as they catch the breeze, and he can't help imagining it, no matter what he does. In stanza 6, the speaker concludes by repeating his sense of the contrast between the happiness of all these natural things and the pain and suffering that human beings cause each other. He again uses religious language, he says creed, to make nature and his belief in nature seem sacred. What man has made of man can mean both the unnecessary suffering that we inflict on each other and also the way that human civilization causes alienation and unhappiness. Lines written in early spring from Lyrical Ballads, 1798, reflect some central romantic themes. The poet, alone in nature, finds nature full of joy and harmony, but sees human beings as out of harmony with this natural joy because of their own actions.